The claim I'm responding to is media depiction of crime investigation undermines the jury process, and my opponent's secondary claims are media shows display a reliance on DNA evidence. DNA evidence is not always accurate. Jurors are unconvinced without scientific evidence. The first one is the first secondary claim is media shows display in a reliance on DNA evidence. The opponent said that the police in these shows use DNA evidence a lot. And first of all, they say that media shows, they clearly say that it's media shows that display it, but he doesn't really declare which media shows, because it could be like the Oprah Winfrey show, or you don't really know what show he's talking about until he says CSI. And I looked up CSI in the CBS.com, and it says that CS Crime Investigation is a fast-paced drama about a team of forensic investigators trained to solve crimes by examining the evidence. And here he says the police in these shows use DNA evidence a lot. So people, when they think about police, they think about the patrol officers in their police cars, not investigators with evidence. So I believe that that the claim is unclear, and that there's no evidence that shows that the police uses DNA evidence a lot, because he has no proof to show that. And the second claim is that DNA evidence is not always accurate. He's in one of his evidence, it says that almost every cell in our body contains DNA, the genetic material that programs how cells work. 99.9% of human DNA is the same in everyone, meaning that only 0.1% of our DNA is unique. So this is saying that only 1% of our DNA is unique to any person. And here he says it's only 1%, but I found in the same article that by Jackie Whitmer, who was a PhD, that our unique DNA of 1% of 3 billion amounts of 3 billion cells, which she says this is more than enough to provide profit that accurately identifies a person. So this 1% of DNA, it can accurately identify the person, which she says. And the third claim is jurors are unconvinced without scientific evidence. I believe that this is untrue, and that jurors are convinced without scientific evidence, because he first of all uses evidence from the Casey Anthony case of a computer expert testifying. For the prosecutor said someone in the Anthony home made searches for chloroform, how to make chloroform, neck breaking, and shovel among the terms. And here he says that he believes that the jury didn't see this as good evidence because it wasn't scientific, but juror number 3, who was Ford, says that Ford told Morin she thought Casey Anthony's claim that her 2-year-old daughter accidentally drowned and she lied for 3 years was more believable than the evidence the prosecutors proceeded. So it's not that it wasn't scientific evidence, that's why they didn't believe this, but it's because they didn't see that it was very truthful. And she also says that there wasn't enough evidence, and my opponent said that he referred to that as scientific evidence, that they were wanting more of it. But here she says that enough evidence, so he's inferring that they wanted more scientific evidence. And I believe that jurors are convinced without scientific evidence because Donald Shelton, a judge in Amber did a scientific survey of the people who watch CSI and people who don't. And in the every crime scenario, CSI viewers were more likely to convict without scientific evidence if eyewitness testimony was available. So here it shows that CSI viewers didn't need scientific evidence to convict every crime. They just needed a testimony available. So my opponent was only assuming that the jury in this Casey Anthony case was all CSI viewers, and that's why I believe that media depiction of crime investigation undermines the jury process is not correct.
All right. Everything organizationally at the beginning seems fine. You're challenging what the claim is at the very beginning. I think you're making a little bit of a stretch when you're arguing there's a difference between the police and CSI, and that this confluence of terms really is a little bit of hair splitting that doesn't affect the first supporting point. It just seems like you're struggling to find something to say on that point, and what you found to say is, well, we think of the police as being, the guys on the beat, not the forensics investigators, and those guys are doing a fine job. It didn't feel very adequate to me on that point. On the second point, though, when you're talking about the DNA material, where you in essence say, even with that 1% that we do find, that is enough for us to actually identify. I thought that was a good response. That was applicable to the advocate's case there on that point pretty effectively. You dispute the conclusion on point number 3, and you're primarily discussing the issue of the Casey Anthony trial, and you've got a quote from one of the jurors who talks about what their problem with the evidence was and how they perceived the two stories, because a lot of it is about storytelling, and a lot of people think of argument as being a discussion of narratives, which story is the one that seems most believable in this situation. And you've got a good quote here from one of the jurors who in essence says that they believe the story of the Casey Anthony more, which I don't understand, but that's the way they went about it. That's perfectly fine. The best evidence that you had in the argument was the one from the judge with their associate who tested people who had been CSI viewers and whether or not they would still convict in the absence of forensics evidence if there was eyewitness testimony. And I thought that was a pretty effective piece of information that applies to the argument. So that's the strongest argument there. I think you need to work a lot on your eye contact, and sometimes your fluency is a little bit of problematic. Same sort of thing that we said before. You want your declarative claims to be as straightforward as possible. All right. Thank you all very much this evening. We will continue this on Thursday, whenever we're here next.